People are full of surprises, especially when you travel together. Thankfully, Vrbo is not. When you book a Vrbo, you get Vrbo Care and 24/7 live support, so your house doesn't surprise you like your friends might. If something's not as described or doesn't work, Vrbo's there. Real people, real support, anytime. Book today on the Vrbo app. If you know, you Vrbo. Terms apply. See vrbo.com/trust for details.
Last night, you spent 2 hours deciding what to wear to the party. This morning, it'll take you 2 minutes to list it on Depop and make your money back. Just grab your phone, snap a few photos, and we'll take care of the rest. The sheer dress and platform heels you'll never wear again? There's a birthday girl searching for them right now. Your one-and-done look is about to pay for your next night out. Or at least the ride home. Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Welcome back to Cruising. This is Sarah Gabrielli, and today we're talking about the most successful lesbian magazine in the world, Curve, with its founder, Franco Stevens. Franco was in her early 20s when she first leapt into the world of magazine publishing in 1990. Against all odds, she was able to raise the funds and reach lesbians all over the world. Now, 35 years later, Franco and the magazine have been through so many twists and turns, which you'll hear all about shortly. But through it all, Curve is still around, fostering lesbian community and documenting our history. It's now part of the Curve Foundation, a national nonprofit focused on LGBTQ+ women's stories and culture. We're pretty aligned here. The really important thing for you to know right now is that the Curve Foundation hosts North America's annual Lesbian Visibility Week, which this year runs April 20th to 26th. That's 1 week away from the time this is airing. They put on a whole week of programming, both remote and in person, across the continent. I'm going to put a link in our show notes to their schedule of events so you can see what's happening near you. All sexual and gender identities are welcome. Also, in our show notes, you will find a link to pre-order our book, The Lesbian Bar Chronicles, which is coming out next month on May 26th. Lots of exciting stuff happening. I'm going to have more info for you soon about some book tour events. You won't want to miss it.
I am going to go way back to when I was a kid.
Please do.
You know, I was what they called the tomboy back then. I wore a baseball hat backwards every day. I played sports. I used to run in for dinner when my mom called me, and I'd be out the door second I gobbled down the food so that I could go out and play with the boys. I had a friend in elementary school, and she finally gave me the ultimatum of like, okay, do you want to play hopscotch with me, or do you want to play football with the boys? Because I'm not going to sit on the sidelines and watch you. And I was like, oh, such a decision. Like, ugh. I should have given me a clue that I was a lesbian, but I had no idea.
Did you pick bros or hoes?
I totally picked the bros. The sports drive was just too strong for me. Which is good because now, she turned out to be straight, and that would have been like just a heartbreak, and such a nice person. Anyway, flash forward several years later, I was a camp counselor, and I fell in love with my co-counselor. And I was like, wait, no, this can't be. She told me I was a sin against God and nature when I went to visit her in her hometown. So after that, I was so traumatized that I married this really nice guy and tried to settle down. I was really young when I got married, like 18. And we moved to San Francisco, and I was taking a class called Variations in Human Sexuality, and a light bulb went off. I was like, oh no, my whole life, it makes sense now. Like I had never seen lesbian representation. I'd never seen queer women. The only gay person that I had seen, there was some show that I can't even remember the name of. There was some show that I saw that had a gay character, and I was like, oh, I didn't know women could be gay. I was like, what? This is totally me. And so I found myself 20, 21 years old, living in San Francisco, in a gay mecca being married to a man and realizing very quickly that that wasn't gonna work for me to be my true authentic self. So we got in a fight over it one day, and I left with the clothes on my back, and I was homeless. Well, I lived in my car, so I wasn't truly homeless, but yeah, I was like, I could go live in the Castro. And I really wanted to work at this gay bookstore called The Different Light. And I met the assistant manager who was the only woman that worked there. And she was like, dude, if you want a job here, just show up every day at like 8 a.m. when the manager's coming in and just, ask him for a job every day until he says yes. Tell him you're not going away. Because she's like, I need another woman to be working here. So I did. And I was like, great, this is where I'm going to discover everything. All the women are going to come in. And, I went to the magazine shelf and I was like, okay, there's all these magazines for men. Where's the thing that tells me where to go and how to be like a good dyke? Like, I don't see that. I was like, yeah, somebody should do that. And then over the time, women would come in and they'd be like, hey, do you have like a, culture lesbian magazine? And I was like, no, somebody should really do that. And then one day is like, just like I got hit over the head with you're queer. Oh, I should be the one to start this magazine. What do you know about magazines? Nothing. What do you know about running a business? Nothing. The only thing I knew about running a business was when I was in grade school, I would have my mom buy candy at the whatever the price club was, and I'd resell it on the school grounds for like 25 cents for a piece of gum. So I wrote up my business plan. I was like, all right. I read a book called How to Make $100,000 in Publishing, which at the time in, 1989 was like, hey, a lot of money. So with my little business plan, I walked into the bank and I was just met with like incredible hell no. And then when I told them I wanted to put the word lesbian on the front cover, people were like, you are insane. Even community members told me that that was crazy time. Like, just think of it. Every time somebody wants to buy the magazine, they have to basically come out to the person at the register.
What year is this and how old were you at the time that this is happening?
So I'm like 21, 22. Also, what did I have to lose? I was homeless, living in my car. I started working at a cafe, so I had some muffins to eat, and I was still in school. So
How did you end up in San Francisco? Because you didn't grow up there, right?
no, I grew up in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And how I ended up there was my ex-husband was an army doctor and got restationed to San Francisco for his internship.
That's great for you.
I mean, when we moved, I had no idea. Like, I had no idea what I would discover in San Francisco.
How did you think of the crush that, because was it just sort of this one camp person that you had this weird romantic experience with?
Yeah, she was like the first person to say, I love you. And I was like, oh my God, I love you too. And then
Oh, so you did, but you had a thing. It wasn't totally unspoken.
well, I don't know what she was thinking of, and I have no idea where she is today. And so when I went up to go visit her for Christmas, thinking like, yay, I'm in love with this person. And I didn't even really truly know it as like a sexual thing. Like I didn't fantasize about her or anything, but I knew I loved her. And I went up there and she's like, oh, and this is my boyfriend and his best friend is now for you. And I was like, what? I was so devastated. Her mom was like, I can tell you're really homesick, honey. And I was like, oh, I'm not. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not homesick. I'm like devastated. I didn't formulate any thoughts or words to it, but it was also at that same camp, being a counselor, like I went to my first gay bar in the little town in the, what we called the townies. And I didn't see any women in there. It was all men.
So you were very aware that gay men existed.
Yes. Yeah. So I went into the bar. I said to my friends from the camp, I'm like, do you dare me to go into the gay bar and order like a really foofy drink? And they're like, "Yeah, go." And I'm like, "Will you pay for my drink?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I went to the bar, ordered like some strawberry daiquiri or something with extra fruit on it, and nobody even looked at me or batted an eye or thought, "Why is a 16-year-old in this?"
That's a really good strategy. Like, do you dare me to like kiss my
Yeah,
friend right now?
yeah,
Wouldn't that be crazy?
100, like, that was the way, you know?
That's smart. So you were saying that you didn't really even know what to think about this fellow camp relationship.
I mean, looking back, it's so clear. I mean, looking
Right.
is also why I idolized my high school softball coach.
But did you have any narrative in your head at all? Like what were you telling yourself? You didn't go there as to trying to analyze these feelings.
Well, when I came back from visiting her for that trip, I was really depressed when I came back. I would be sitting in my room with the lights low, listening to, like, sad Barry Manilow songs from the '70s. I was just, like, so sad, and my mom came in, and she was like, "Dad and I wanna take you out to dinner." And in a family with a bunch of kids, you don't ever get to go out with just mom and dad on your own. I think they were scared that I was gonna kill myself. That night we went out and I was like, "Well, only if I get to go to you'll take me to my favorite bar that I like to go to." It's like a nightclub. And they're like, "Yeah, we'll go with you." And it was that night that I met the guy that would be my fiancé, and I was like, "Yep, I can do this." Is that same night. And so when he started talking to me and asking me to dance and, "How old are you?" Well, I'm in a club where you have to be 21 years old. I am 21.
How old was he?
I think he was like 22 or 23 at the time.
But your parents were just kind of bystanders there.
They were just, like, drinking and having, like, they weren't much drinkers, but they were like, "Hey, it's great to see our daughter happy," and I introduced them. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just hanging out here with my folks. You wanna come meet them?" So that was bizarre and weird and seems like a made up story. It doesn't seem like part of my life because it's so far removed from my true self.
What were you telling yourself when you decide to keep seeing this guy and marrying him? Like, what was going on up here and here?
I think that he was a really nice guy. He would have a stable career, and I just thought, "I can do this. This is." My other siblings got married really young, my parents got married really young, and just seemed like they didn't
Mm,
nobody even questioned it.
okay, yeah. That was the representation that you had, was people doing that.
Yeah.
Do you remember the moment where something clicked for you in that class? Do you have more
Oh,
specific memories?
completely. It was like day 1 of the class, and it was like, "Let's talk about homosexuality," and they're like, "Well, men and women, blah, blah, blah," and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that bad word that people flung around, lesbian, that's like, actually a thing," and I was like, "Oh, maybe I'm bisexual," and then I went home and had sex with my husband, and I was like, "Oh, shit, I'm so not." Even before I had or any kind of actual sex with a woman, I was like, I knew.
So then how did it come to a head with him?
Let's see. I was friends with another woman in the class who happened to have, a fiancé who was in medical school, and I was like, "I think she's flirting with me. This would be so great." So I said to her, "Hey, I heard about this cool lesbian club called Club Q in San Francisco. Will you go with me?" And she's like, "Yeah, I will." So the night of Club Q, and it only happens once a month, she bailed on me. She was like, "Yeah, I'm not going." So I was and my husband was on call. He was on call all night. So I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna see if it's really true, if this is really who I am." Right? So I go to the club by myself, not knowing anyone. There is a line, at least 100 people around the block waiting to get in.
It was a one night a
It's like a
month or something?
once-a-month thing that everybody
Yeah.
to. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or fat or skinny or old or young, it was the place. And so I was like, "I am doing this. I'm not gonna chicken out. I am doing this." So I went in and I was like, "These are my people." Oh my God, I had no idea. And that started me on my trajectory, and she's like, "I can't believe you went. I totally chickened out." And before that night was through, I ended up making out in a taxi cab with some super butch woman going like, "I don't know if this is for me." Like, I didn't get that I was into femmes. I was just
Right, because you were you were presenting so femme at that point.
I was presenting definitely I was still presenting pretty femme, yeah.
I'm so glad I made you get into more detail on that
I think
story.
that's more than I've ever told anybody, so feel free to, like, cut out parts of that because it's like you fed me a bunch of, you know, truth serum or something.
Um, well, I'm actually not done with that because
Oh.
then what happened?
Okay, so I was still in university, and I started like, "Hey, I can make friends that are some lesbians here, like, I from the club. There's somebody who goes to my school," and, so started hanging out with other gay people, and I was like I told him, said, "You know, through this course, I've discovered that, I like women," and he was like, "Oh, it's okay. At one time, I thought I liked guys, and I realized that I didn't." So, basically, without saying, I think it's a phase. Like, I think it's a phase. And he's like, "Have you been with a woman?" I was like, "No." And as I became to come into my gayness, he started to try to, like, hold on to me because that was his reality. It's like, "Oh, shoot, my wife is going to end up leaving me." And so he got a little controlling, let's just say, and was like, "You can't have gay friends." Finally, I was just, like, talking to somebody from school, and he came in, and I was laughing, and he's like, "You're laughing at me. You're laughing at," and I was like, "I'm not laughing at you. I'm not even on the phone with somebody gay. I'm talking to somebody from one of my classes." And he was like, "You're not to talk on the phone." I was like, "That's it. I'm I'm out." Before that, I was at a family reunion with my whole family, all my siblings, my mom and dad, and we went on a family beach week vacation. It was raining, so we were all inside playing board games, and I was talking to this woman that I had a crush on the phone, and my husband picked up the phone and was listening from downstairs.
Was it someone from school?
And no, it was somebody that I had met out at one of the bars or something.
Okay. It was like a flirty
Oh,
conversation, I would assume.
completely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I think this is where and he started to become super controlling, but I said, "Hey, this doesn't concern you. Can you please hang up the phone?" Because I realized that he was listening. You could do that back in the day. You could just pick up the other receiver from another place and be, like, listening in, and I was like, "Oh, no, he's listening in." So I asked him to hang up, and he hung up alright, then he went in the other room where my whole family was sitting and outed me to my whole family.
And they did not react well, I'm assuming.
Well, one of my sisters ran upstairs and was like I had already told her that I was questioning my sexuality, and she was like, "Oh my god, your husband ran in and told everybody, and mom and dad are pissed off." And I was like, "Ugh." So he had when I started to tell him about the gay stuff, he's like, "Okay, just keep your hair." I mean, my hair's never been very long, so I just went in the bathroom and I grabbed my dad's electric shaver and I was like,
That day?
"Oh, yeah." So when my parents came up to have this, like, "We're super disappointed in you" conversation, and I think in hindsight, they were really disappointed because they just paid for this huge wedding, like, 2 years ago. I had this, like, totally dykey, bi-level, '90s, shaved around the side haircut that I didn't go into our family vacation with.
You were the original Britney.
I'm like, "Didn't it all make sense?" You started calling me Frank in, like, 3rd grade because that's who I was, that's the name that fit me, so my sister first started calling me Franklin, and then Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and then Frank, and then I was, like, in maybe junior high or the 1st year of high school, I was like, "No, Franco."
And okay, so you leave that marriage, you are unhoused, living in your car, you get a job at this bookstore, which we've already covered. How long are you living out of your car for?
It seemed like longer than it was. Maybe it was, like, 3 months. So what happened was I was at school and a friend of mine said, "Hey, where are you living?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" Because I was embarrassed. he's like, well, I called your house and your husband said you had taken off and left and he had no idea where you were. And so I told him, he was like, no, you're going to come live with us. It was 2 guys and they had a 1-bedroom. One was already living in the living room. I'm like, I can't pay. And they're like, well, you're going to just come with us, come live with us. And you're not going to pay anything until you can pay something. And they're like, in fact, we're going to give you the bedroom.
What?
I know. It's like, no way. No way. They're like, we insist.
'Cause you're the girl?
I guess. I don't know. Like, what? Those little saints. So I found this like foam pad that was maybe the width of my body and sunk in the middle. And I was like, this is my bed. But for the first time in my life, I was like, I can make all the decisions I want myself. I don't have to report anything. Because I went from living in my parents' house to living with my husband. I was never my own, fully my own person, and it was an incredible time for me to have that self-discovery and that freedom and that support from those 2 guys. And I met my first real girlfriend when I was living there. And then we tried to sleep on that little foam pad together. So I was with Vicky. We eventually, after getting a few jobs, the 4 of us moved to a place in the Castro. Her and I were together 3 or 4 years. And I was with her when I started the magazine.
So starting the magazine, you did what so many women continue to do, which is like identify a need in the community that you wanted filled for yourself, and you were noticing that other people wanted it, and that was a glossy lesbian magazine. Can we get into the nitty-gritty of like how one starts an entity like that? You have this idea, you're in your early 20s. What do you do?
Well, you need money and you need people to help you. So I was not very effective at the first one. Like I said, I went to the bank. I asked the bank for a loan. This was, I don't know, the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. The economy was horrible. The interest rates were super high. And they were just like, magazines are failing left and right. There's no way we're giving it to an unproven, 21-year-old girl. So I went to some of what I thought were the older, rich lesbians in San Francisco, which basically probably meant they had a job. And it was almost just like, oh, kid, that's not going to happen. So I started working 3 jobs. I was like, I will save enough money to start this magazine. Meanwhile, I put up a sign in the bookstore that said, writers and photographers wanted for New Lesbian Magazine. And I put my home number where I live with the 2 guys. And I got 300 calls in a month. And I was like, aha, people are interested in it. And everything kind of fell into place. It was as if, oh, I needed an editor. And then I'd get a call. Hi, I saw your son and I want to write for you. Oh, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm an editor for this local paper. And I was like, an editor, you say? We need an editor.
Did you actually do the crazy things they say in the documentary, like
Oh, 100%.
have a sushi eating contest?
What, at work?
No, it said in the documentary, it said, Franco told me if I can eat more sushi than her, then I'm hired.
Yes, but that was later on. That was already like yes.
What was the reason to do that? So sort of just set a tone for your working relationship or something like that?
Yeah, not only that, but the way that I would connect with people was just a lot less formal of a job interview per se. And I mean, we had a shoestring budget. So it's like basically, I'm asking you to come work for little or no money by that time. Everybody at the beginning everybody was volunteer. But that particular person was our second photo editor. The one who had been the photo editor at the beginning said, okay, I'm getting really busy with work. I want to introduce you to my friend, Deb St. John. She's an incredible photographer. She would be great to take my job. Okay, I'm going to hang out with Deb St. John. She seems cool. I like her work. Let's throw down. You can have the job if you can eat more sushi. Yeah.
You're so ballsy.
Hey, at least it wasn't a wasabi eating
Oh,
contest.
God. That would be cruel. That would actually be
My
cruel.
roommates used to do that. It was
Oh,
so funny and disgusting to watch them.
that's an unfair use of the power dynamic, I think. Eating the sushi is a great use of the power dynamic.
Yeah.
So people are sort of just signing up for this for the love of it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you really raised the money from just working a bunch of jobs?
Oh, hell no. I realized quickly that I was like, "Okay, I am never going to get there. I need about 70K just to get us through the first couple of issues of printing." We didn't have a computer. We had like, our designer was in graphic school, so we would go down to school and, like, design the magazine on that. So after the bank said no, the rich lesbians said no, I was like, "Let's just cash out a bunch of credit cards." One, I did have good credit, even though I didn't like, I have good credit. So, back then, there was no internet really, so you could apply for a credit card in the mail, and then they send it to you, and by the time they send a letter to the credit agency to put that on your record, it's been like a month. So, I just applied for a bunch of credit cards on one day, and I got them, and I just cashed them out, and I was like, "You know what I know? I know horse racing. I'm gonna go to the horse races, and I'm just gonna see if it's meant to be or not." So, I went to the track with all the money that I had, and I left with enough money to start the magazine.
How? How did you get so lucky? Do you know about horse racing?
I do, but even those who, it's still, even the best horse can have a bad day. Even
Right.
the best jockey and trainer, it was just meant to be. And it wasn't one particular race, it was like as if, I say this a lot, because about that day, because I really feel it. It was like God was a lesbian. It was like, these are the ones. And the biggest bet I won that day was I went to the paddock to look at the horses, which I like to do because I know something. I used to work at the track when I was a kid. That's a whole nother story. And the favorite, I looked at the favorite, and just as the jockey gets on, he looks back like, is this back leg okay? And I was like, that's a sign. That's a sign. So I got rid of the favorite in that race and put up like a long shot, and that just really parlayed into me being able to start the magazine.
So that kind of thing was sort of happening all day where you were kind of like making these lucky good decisions.
A lot of it was just luck, really. I mean, it's just meant to be.
Yeah. What was in the magazine? Like the earliest iteration of it? What did it look like?
So the first magazine was color and glossy on the outside and black and white on the inside. I think we had an interview of Carol Migden, who was a out lesbian supervisor in San Francisco at the time. We had some event party coverage, like where were the bars in San Francisco, LA, and New York for lesbians. We had an athlete piece. I believe we had some gossip, lesbian gossip, and also some departments like books and music. So I was working at a bookstore, and the assistant manager there was a great book writer. So it seemed only natural to have her write the book and the music stuff.
And then how do you distribute it? How do you spread the word?
What I did was I called up there was a bunch of gay and feminist bookstores at the time. So I called them up, I told them my plan, and a few of them said, yeah, we'll order it. The way magazine orders work is you send us the magazine, we put it out, it sells, and then we remit, 40 or 50% of that money to you, or 60, depending on the bookstore. I would have to pay for shipping there. If we wanted the magazines back that didn't sell, I would also have to pay the shipping that comes to me. Crazy. We took up the offer on the few that said yes, they would sell it on consignment, and that's how magazines were done. I don't know how they're done now, but that's how they were done. I'm sure it's the same. And then the ones that said no, I said, well, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you 10 copies and see how it goes for you. And if it goes well, you can either keep the money or remit it to me, but just place an order after that. And then I set up a little sidewalk stand at the bookstore where I worked, and I sold magazines from the table for people just walking by.
You personally did.
Yeah, me personally.
What was the reaction from people? How did it go?
It went great. I mean, the first issue sold out in like, I don't know, pretty much immediately. Any of those ones that I sent off were just snapped up. And it said, lesbian on the front cover, which was pretty bold at the time. People were like, "Don't say that, just say it's a women's magazine."
Did you personally really want it to say lesbian? Like, you were advocating for that?
Right, people were like, it's not gonna it's not gonna happen if you do that. People are too scared to hold it, to read it, to have it out in their house. And I just felt really strongly like, this is the direction we have to go in.
Do you know about the Dyke discount at Women Crafts in P-Town? All you have to do is ask for the Dyke discount, but the idea is like it's 10 or 20% off for Dykes. And so many people for the first time in their lives are claiming the identity of being a dyke in
Oh,
Women
because
Crafts.
they have to say Dyke discount.
Yeah, they just have to say, "Can I get the dyke discount?" And obviously, a lot of like most dykes want to save the 10-20%.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like this beautiful thing where so many people have coming out moments in Women Crafts, and that is the sort of dynamic that Curve had because you put lesbian on the cover. Did everyone end up celebrating your decision to have it on the cover?
I think in that very first meeting that I had with all the people that called from the bookstore, like, from the sign in the bookstore, I was just like, this is the vision, and if it's not your vision, like, "Hey, go start something else," because nothing happens if we just sit around complaining. I don't know if people were celebrating it, but it was a very different time in the '90s. This was really early '90s, so there was a lot of power in using the word lesbian. My connection with the word runs deep. I remember the first time I used it about myself, and
When was that?
that was shortly after realizing after I went home and had sex with my husband, I was like, "I'm a lesbian." I remember, like, as if I was mouthing it to myself, "I'm a lesbian."
It's so not about the guy in this situation, but that is like every man's worst nightmare.
Unless they can watch, then it's their favorite and participate.
What do you think about have you been tapped into the stuff that's been going on the internet recently? Like people saying that they're political lesbians, they're sort of choosing to live a lesbian life. A lot of people are angry about that.
Here's what
Like
I have to
about,
say about that.
okay, I'm so curious.
So, this internal fighting within our beautiful rainbow umbrella is not helpful. Look at what we're dealing with from the outside. Why do we have to break each other down? You wanna call yourself something that I don't agree with? What does it hurt me? It doesn't hurt me. You can like, I'm not gonna say you're a bad queer because you don't embrace the term lesbian. No. Like, I have bigger fish to fry. I try to spread love and not hate. So, I mean, we took a lot of flack, like, in the early '90s because we had transgender employees. I'm like, "Well, too bad. If you don't like it, it's you have a choice, right? When you're on the internet, you have a choice. You can keep scrolling, or it's a lot easier to be offensive behind the veil of a keyboard." I mean, whatever terms we choose to use for ourselves, somebody's gonna disagree with that, you know? Who gets to make that decision about my own identity? Who knows me better than me? I hope it's nobody, you know?
Was trans inclusion always part of what you were trying to do?
I don't know if it was so intentional from the first start. One of my editors came to me and said, "Oh, my wife is transitioning to be a man, and I guess that means you want me to resign." And I was like, "Why would I want you to resign? Like, your partner also works for us doing our IT stuff. Like, that would just be crazy. No, of course not." I was like, "And come to think about it, we had trans men doing stuff already. So why would you even ask me that question?" "Well, people are kind of on the fence about the subject." I was like, "This is the right decision for the magazine. You are the right person to be the editor of this publication because your wife is transitioning into your husband." And what was more interesting is like gay marriage wasn't legal then, but when he transitioned, they could get married. They could have a legal marriage. I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, I mean, it's so sad to think about being so clouded by the criticism that she couldn't see that you would embrace that. It's just like, oh my God, my heart goes out.
Yeah, it's just like, it was like another coming out for her.
Right. Yeah. For both of them.
Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm.
There's no one like you, and there never will be.
From the producer of Bohemian Rhapsody, there are many legends, but there is only one. Michael, rated PG-13, in theaters April 24.
Half Man, the new HBO original limited series from Baby Reindeer creator Richard Gadd, examines the tumultuous relationship between two estranged brothers, tracking the highs and lows of the pair over the course of 40 years. Starring Emmy Award winner Richard Gadd and BAFTA Award winner Jamie Bell. Half Man premieres April 23rd on HBO Max.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
So we had enough money from the gambling and the credit cards to make it through the first 3 issues.
Okay.
3 issues, make it or break it. I mean, most businesses have 3 years to decide if they were going to, break even or be in the black. And I was like, okay, we've got 3 issues. So we're at the second issue has gone to print. We're coming up on the third. And I was like, we're getting like 1 or 2 subscriptions in the mail, which is exciting, but it's not enough. When it goes to a bookstore, when the next issue comes out, then 30 days after that, you might get a check for the previous issue. So we're looking at a lag of at least 90 days. And the math just wasn't adding up after the third issue. Could have been our last. So when I went to visit my family in Gainesville, Florida, I knew that there was a press called Naiad Press that was the publisher of lesbian romance novels. And I discovered these at the bookstore. And I was like, holy cow, there's actual books about this stuff before I even was looking for a magazine. And so I was like, I'm going to go meet the owner, the publisher of Naiad Press. So I drove the couple of hours from my sister's house. I showed up. I was wearing my double-breasted suit and holding my briefcase. And the owner, Barbara Greer, looked at me and she's like, aren't you just the cutest little baby dyke I've ever seen? She's like, I love your magazine. And I was like, yeah, you wrote me that letter saying how much you loved it. And she's like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a flyer in our next mailing. There was no email. It was all snail mail. And people are going to gobble this up. And I'm going to say that this is the best thing that's ever happened to the lesbian community, this magazine. And you're going to just wait. So you have to come up with this, I can't remember, $600 to print the flyers or something. I'm like, $600. I do not have $600. What am I going to do? So I dragged my ex-girlfriend, my then girlfriend, out on the sidewalk. We were like detailing guys' motorcycles in front of the gay bars, collecting the cash. We got enough money. We printed this thing.
That's such a random idea. You just saw a dirty
I
motorcycle
saw a lot of dirty motorcycles in the gay Castro neighborhood. And I was like, where do these boys get there? And I was already riding my motorcycle at the time, and mine was pristine. So I would just have mine parked next. The guy would drive up, park his bike. His ride would be totally dirty, and I'd be like, "Look at my bike. Hey, you should get your bike. Look at mine. Oh, can I wash your bike while you're in, getting a few pints? How much? Oh, $40, $20, $50, whatever I could assess. Yeah, okay, go." And then he'd come back, give me the money. His bike would be clean. I'd be high on the fumes of the anti-greaser. And my girlfriend was ready to leave me at the time. She was like, "This sucks. I feel so horrible from inhaling those fumes every day." I was like, "Okay, we got it. One weekend, we were set. We got all the money we need." We sold some magazines. We detailed some bikes. We printed the flyer. She sent it off. We didn't have an office. My home was sort of this makeshift office in the living room. And so we had all of our mail sent to like one of those P.O. Box Plus places. And I went in, I checked the mailbox, and after about 2 weeks of having the flyer out there, we got one back, and it was like, "We got a subscription, yay!" And then the next day I came, and there was like, I don't know, a couple of subscriptions. I was like, "This is incredible." And on the third day I came in, I opened the box, 0. And I was like, "Well, whatever, bankruptcy, no more magazine." And as I was walking out of the place with my head down, the guy behind the counter said, "Hey, wait, Franco." And he popped a sack of mail, and there were sacks and buckets coming for like 2 weeks of hundreds of subscriptions. And because of that, we made it through. Yeah.
Does that mean that it's sustainable now?
Well, we had to do some pretty outlandish things over the year to get it sustainable.
Okay.
And
What's that?
well, also, like, how do you reach people at a time where there's no internet?
What'd you do?
Go from city to city. We posted a thing in the magazine asking for city hosts, and then we went from city to city, presenting at the gay bookstore, the feminist bookstore, doing a radio show, sleeping on people's couches. We had this cross country tours that we would do during the summer in between publishing issues. We did that for multiple years. We also started to
That's
get
so cool.
some, what we thought of was huge celebrities at the time, lesbians. For us, we had like Melissa Etheridge. That was huge. I mean, that was huge. She actually said, "I'm a lesbian," like on air. Holy, and the Indigo Girls, and those were our heroes. Those were our heroes. And to have them in the magazine. And then we started to get some national ads. I remember the first one was Bud Light. Like, oh my God, we're getting a national advertisement.
How did you get connected with Melissa Etheridge? Was that she just kind of in your circles at that point?
Oh, no. I mean, definitely not in my circles for sure. I don't even remember how we got it. I do remember in the early days, we put out a call to, what's her name?
Lily Tomlin?
Yes, thank you. You know where I was going.
I watched the documentary yesterday, so it's very fresh.
Yeah, so I put out this call, never thought anything would happen to it. So I come out of the bathroom and my intern says like, "Hey, somebody called for you while you were in the bathroom." I was like, "Oh, okay, who was it?" And she's like, "Oh, she said her name was Lily Tomlin." And I was like, "What? What did she say?" As if God had called me. I was like, "What are you even talking about?" She wasn't out at the time. And she just said, she wanted to thank you personally for, inviting her to be on the cover, but she can't do it at this time and hopes you understand. And I was like, "Why did you get me out of the bathroom?" I was like,
To talk
"I
to
have
her.
no idea who this person is. Like, this is."
So she wasn't out, and you were just kind of like,
She called me. That's
really cool. Did you know for a fact, though, at that point, was it kind of like in
Yeah, I knew.
everyone knew?
Yeah.
But the hope was that she would come out on the
think the
cover.
hope was that she would just agree to be interviewed. I mean, not in my wildest dreams did I think, oh, she could come out in the magazine.
But it really was coming out, though. Being associated with it really meant coming out.
Back then, for sure. I mean, we've gone on to have, like, allies and people that are playing I mean, we had Lucy Lawless on the cover. She didn't identify as lesbian at the time, but we were all sure watching the shows, the show that she was on. Do you know what show she was on? You know the show?
Don't call me out on that. No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Xena, Princess Warrior.
Okay.
Every
Yes.
lesbian was, like, glued to that set where her and her understudy having this, like, unspoken lesbian relationship. We all watched.
Well, at that point, she's already associated with that. I'm sure
Yeah.
it's not as big of a deal to be like in those spaces. The L word actors obviously are not all lesbians, and it makes perfect sense for them to be part of the magazine. Were you getting feedback from people about the overt lesbianness? Was that a dynamic for people of the readers needing to be discreet about reading it?
Yeah, I mean, it was also a time of don't ask, don't tell, and a lot of our readers were in the military. And so we put that magazine in brown paper wrapper. So the mailman probably thought they were getting porn, but they were actually getting very, vanilla lesbian culture magazine.
What about other feedback? I'm sure this impacted a lot of people just that it existed.
Oh yeah, we got stories like this saved my life. People would call the office to basically just they would have a question about the magazine, but they really just wanted to talk to another gay person. They just like had no community, and we were that. But they would go to the bookstore, and a lot of them would not have the courage to buy the magazine. They would just read it inside of another magazine, Barnes and Noble. But it was pretty cool the first time you walk up to the shelf at Barnes and Noble, and there's your magazine, like dun dun dun.
So now that this exists, you're inherently making ground in lesbian visibility. But is there more of a mission than that now? Or are there things that you're trying to achieve with what you're putting in the magazine?
Yeah, we want a magazine that people will want to read, that they wait every month or every other month. They cannot wait till that envelope comes in the mail. We want to, because there was a lot of newsstand sales, we'd always try to put somebody on the cover that would get that, like, ooh, I need to buy this. And then we would put the harder impact stuff on the inside, because if we want to talk about anything political, if we put that on the cover, people at the time are not going to buy that. They need to read about the issues, but they need to take the magazine home in order to do that. So the news, the politics, the arts, the entertainment, the culture, and the women that doing the great things within our community, that's who we wanted to highlight.
Were you aiming for kind of culture shifts with the content?
Always. We didn't realize that we were setting and following 30 years of lesbian times, the changes in our community, the issues that we faced, the women that led the way.
Actually, we should mention that it's not called Curve at this point.
Yeah. Well, when we first started the magazine, it was called something else. And then we were sued over that other name.
Are you not allowed to say that name?
I'm allowed to say that name, but I'm really not allowed to talk about anything regarding
it. Am I?
I have no control over you. I'm not holding a little remote control.
Okay, so it was called
first called Deneuve.
For 5 years.
Yeah. 5 years. It's really hard to change the name after 5 years of recognition and people learning about it. And I still think a lot of people thought it went away. They didn't know it turned into Curve.
Oh, like it was just two different things?
Yeah, it was just two different things. But it was a lot easier for people to call up and know how to say Curve than Deneuve. People were like, Deneuve magazine?
We can't say what the magazine was named after, but there's an actress, Catherine Deneuve. She sues you in 1995, and it's devastating. You're building this up, and it's financially devastating. I'm sure, morale is on the floor, and then eventually you settle, and you have to change the name to what we now know is Curve, and you have to bounce back from this financially. How did you do that?
Because of the community support that we were able to keep going. We hosted an event called Alive and Kicking to help cover some of our legal costs. It put us into debt like 250 grand. I mean, that is a lot of dough. But the community really came forward. Celebrities came and they auctioned off lunch with themselves and copies of their artwork and autographed books, and that really kind of got us over the edge and, back to those good old trusty credit cards, which I had finally paid off. I realized that we could continue to fight, or we can change our name and go on to continue publishing this magazine under a new title, which is what we did. And it was the right decision. And Curve is a lot easier to say than Deneuve.
Totally. I'm so glad I don't have to say that again.
Came out just recently, a couple years ago. I think it was when somebody said, I won't mention any names, grab them by the, and she said, oh, that's just boys being boys. Let them do the thing. You should take it as a compliment.
Well, that's right in line with
Yeah.
the character of someone that would sue the lesbian magazine.
Well, they've been around for 5 years.
Yeah.
There
I
are more
mean,
things to talk about than her.
no, totally. Okay, moving forward. How did you meet your wife?
Oh my God, my love of my life. I met at a Curve magazine holiday party.
What year was it?
I think it was 2007, something like that. She was starting a lesbian travel company with a friend of mine who she happened to be a girlfriend of. And they came to the party, and I gave her a big hug. And I said, oh, you guys are a little bit late, but there's, cheese and crackers and maybe some vodka left, and that's about it. It's like, well, I don't eat cheese or crackers I was like, wait, what? Because I have allergy to dairy, and I was like, tell me more. So we just sort of hit it off, and we became friends. I wasn't in any shape ready to be in a relationship with her, so we became friends, and then shortly after, I was checking into my hotel at Sundance, and I looked over, also registering was my future wife, and I don't think we saw many movies that year. I was like, "Oh, I don't know any other people here at Sundance Film Festival." She's like, "Yeah, me neither." I was like, "Well, let's hang out." And then, yeah.
Um, I mean, this story would be incomplete if we didn't talk about your fall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it would. I was, unloading a shipment of magazines, and a freak accident caused me to be, disabled for what seems like the rest of my life, because that was already many years ago. I hurt my feet, and, anybody watching this that has the same thing, if they watch the movie, they'll know it's about them. I went from being a competitive boxer to being somebody that couldn't really even get out of bed because of so much pain. So I do what I can do when I can. Unfortunately, I do live with chronic pain, and it's tough. And seeing the world from a different angle is definitely not the bad thing. I embrace it as part of who I am. And I like to think of myself as handy capable. I try to be a really positive person. It is a big part of me, but as though I seem like happy and, okay right now. Like I am, even with today's meeting, I could have woken up and been like, nope, I can't do it. Like I physically cannot do it. So it still impedes my life like every second of every day. So it makes me a little uncomfortable kind of to talk about. You can tell when I'm like moving around, and yeah. I want people to see representation of disabled people,
Yeah.
but yet it's tough. It's like this
Right. Because when it's not simply a mobility thing, it's chronic pain, which is something that you don't just like get used to that and like adapt. I mean, obviously you do, but you can't fully.
Yeah.
Obviously it impacts you in every single facet of your life, but how did it impact your ability to work on the magazine?
Well, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't run the magazine at the level I needed to be done. I couldn't, work extended hours. I couldn't deal with the pain. I couldn't even get out of bed. So the best choice for the magazine to see it go forward was to find another like-minded publisher to take it over. And that's exactly what I did. And it was as though my child had gone off and got married or gone off to college. Little did I know that they would be coming back.
You sold it in 2010,
Mm-hmm.
and then you don't buy it back for 11 years. So what was your life like?
My life was extremely painful.
Mm.
I have chronic pain, and it's very hard to deal with that and still be upbeat and positive. And, if we only look towards tomorrow, we don't fully live in today. So I was doing what I could, spending time with my family. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I'm really blessed and lucky. I have a house, which I have I have a wheelchair accessible van. Like, these are great blessings that I have. And when the publisher at the time called me up and said, we can't make Curve work anymore, and just as a courtesy call, we're selling it to a publisher. And my first question was, well, like, who? And can I get it back? And me and my wife talked to each other and was like, can we start a nonprofit foundation that we buy the magazine back and donate it to the nonprofit? So it's owned by the community. It's not owned by us.
So that was 2021.
That was, about 2021.
What does that mean for, like, what is Curve Magazine now? How does it function?
Yeah, so Curve Magazine is a project of the Curve Foundation, which is the name of the entity now. And we are the only national nonprofit that's uplifting lesbian culture and stories from an intergenerational perspective. There's so little funding going to our community, it's obscene how little. So we publish the magazine as a quarterly. It reflects on how issues were covered back then and how it relates to today. We uplift the journalists telling our stories through the Curve Fellowship for Emerging Journalists, which is, if it wasn't for Barbara Greer and that story I told you about the Naiad Press and her kind of taking me under her wing, the magazine would have stopped after a year, before the year 1 even ended. How can I pass that on? How can I help today's journalists get jobs, be better prepared, feel like they have that mentorship? If I would have called up Barbara every day, she would have given me advice, but I didn't know that I could do that. So we provide monthly meetings. They get to go to the National Conference for Journalists. We also do Lesbian Visibility Week, which is one of my favorite things that we do. We create queer community for women across the U.S. and Canada. This year it's April 20th through the 26th, but we do it every year. This year we're going to have 100 events from coast to coast. And then we produce programs all year. Like, we just had a film club with Jane Lynch. I don't know if you know who she is, but...
I know who Jane Lynch is. That's not a niche reference.
Okay, good.
Thanks for listening to Cruising. If you like this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. It really helps others discover our podcast. Cruising is produced by a small but mighty team of 3 queer women, Rachel Karp, Jen McGinnity, and me, your host and editor, Sarah Gabrielli. Our theme song is by Joey Freeman. You can support us at buymeacoffee.com/cruisingpod. Follow us on social media at cruisingpod, on Substack, cruising.substack.com, and at our website, www.cruisingpod.com.
Oh, please, not that music. That music gives me nightmares from my childhood.
Could we get something a little bit lighter, some lighter music here?
Are you a fan of true crime TV shows?
And what about Unsolved Mysteries, the show that jump-started all of our love of true crime?
I'm Ellen Marsh.
And I'm Joey Taranto.
And we host I Think Not, a true crime comedy podcast covering some of the wildest stories from your favorite true crime campy TV shows all the way to Unsolved Mysteries.
Baby, you will laugh, you will cry, you'll think about true crime in a whole new way, and you'll also ask yourself, who gave these people mics?
New episodes of I Think Not are released every Wednesday, with bonus episodes out every Thursday on Patreon.
And every Monday, you can listen to our True Crime Rundown, where we go over the top true crime headlines of the week.
So come and join us wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Reality TV is messy. Pop culture is louder than ever.
And the internet
completely unhinged.
Welcome to Roxanne
and Chantel,
the podcast where cousins Roxanne and Chantel break down reality TV, celebrity drama, and the stories everyone's texting about.
We recap the shows,
spill the headlines,
and sit down with the stars themselves.
No filter,
no boring takes,
just the tea.
New episodes every week.
If it's trending,
we're talking about it.
This is Roxanne
and Chantel.
Let's get into it.